You know Australia. We're in New South Wales.
Oh, you're in New South Wales.
We're only 45 minutes south of the border, though.
Okay. Yeah, it's
So we're
so
more like
big. Yeah, it's so big. It does. Yeah.
Really big.
Mumba
we like,
Burger. What's it called?
we like to say that we're a bit more like
Bundaberg.
Queensland.
No. What is the place you live?
Mullumbimby.
God, what a word. Malambimbi.
You'll get it one day.
I know I will.
Mullumbimby.
I'll be traversing all of that continent again.
Yeah, you would be. How are you?
I'm good. I haven't slept like in 3 days. I don't know what's going on. I've slept like just a few hours. I have no idea what's happening. How about y'all?
Yeah, we've been waking up in the middle of the night too, haven't we?
Yeah, for a few nights, but come around 3:30. But then last night I put some purification essential oil on my crown and I slept right through. So I felt like a baby.
Wow.
Yeah, I realized that mine was my body was overloaded, like just with the and I'm sure there's lots of people that would have recognized this as well, just being so sensitive but being so strong, having cleared so much as well, but my body still holds stuff. And I went to see the acupuncturist the other day, and yeah, just the session that she did with me, I slept right through that night. My kidneys and my liver and my spleen meridians were all overloaded. So I was it was just my body taking on stuff and holding it. And yeah, it just made me realize I remembered to do that more often.
I wonder if like personal attunements will become part of our daily life, like doing our own Reiki or just whatever. You know what I mean?
So important.
I reckon you have to, mate.
Yeah.
Like to, well, you know how a high, like super conscious brainwave state is the same as psychotic. Like the reason why people go into super consciousness is because they do exactly what you're talking about. They purify themselves. But if you like the energies that are on the planet at the moment, sending people tropo because they're not doing as you say.
Yeah.
And I'm really finding them. It's like an elder in the bush told me one day, the more you know about the bush and its sentience and its connection, the more the bush will hold you accountable to respect it and live by that law. And so when I go into the bush, like I'm constantly tuning into a place, like walking in tracks on my own deep in the bush, no communication with anything. If you know, lots of people say, why do you do that, man? Well, because it's not how I don't feel at risk. I feel if I get told not to go down a path or to stop, I'm stopping. Because if I don't stop, I know that I'm probably going to become face to face with a snake or a tree or fall down or something like that. And like I've got to just keep tuning in to what's going around, man. And that's been a huge lesson about society, because for a while I just said, oh, push, instead of realising that's the main street of Mullumbimby, dude. You know, I've got to do the same thing on the main street. So it's been a good lesson.
Connection, isn't it? Just always coming back to that connection and groundedness.
So you get more collaboration from nature the more you're aware of it, and it doesn't hold it against you if you're not aware of it.
In essence, yeah. It's like blissful. I call it BIC, blindly, ignorantly compliant. There's so many people that don't, they don't realize, because they, you know, New Age terminology is awake, but you know what is awake? So lots of people are just live their life blissfully ignorant of the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
The thing is, they've had to numb themselves to get to a point where they can actually operate there, and lots of them don't want to unnumb themselves. They don't want to feel again, so they take, you know, all the distractive, mood-altering substances. They use emotional suppressive techniques just to get by in the day, because that's become their normal modus operandi. But if I don't, and I just speak for myself, I choose no longer to live like that because it wasn't benefiting me. And, you know, it put Kirsty and I on the rocks and put my relationship with my children in jeopardy. So I chose a different path, which was to wake up. And I can't say I'm an advocate of waking up because sometimes it sucks. But I wouldn't choose another way, if that makes sense.
But I just love it how she shows us every day, how the earth shows us every day, unconditional love and acceptance, and that we can make our choices, you know, like she's not going to hold it against us if we're not connected to her. But the more we get connected to her, the more that she offers us the opportunity to learn. And that's just so beautiful for where we are right now.
Yeah, that's important because there's a huge sense of, in the old paradigm of entitlement, or not respecting the earth, just taking it for granted. So you're saying that the more you connect with it, the more respect you have for it, everything just kind of follows.
Yep.
And the more knowledge I get, like, sometimes when I've been in the bush for a long time, or a prolonged period of time, and I'm just sitting there, I'm now become a conversation with it. And I think I've had that conversation before when I woke up one morning out there and I thought, I had the realization, the only difference between me and everything else around me is that I feel I'm separate. And that then sparked a whole day of meditating into the bush. I don't see trees. And that's my mantra was, I don't see trees. I don't see trees for an entire day. And it was just really groundbreaking for my consciousness. I didn't need LSD that day. The thing is, it's there. It's all there for us if we choose to, in a respectful, reverent, and responsible way, engage it, and then it will do the same back to us.
Yeah. So how's the last few weeks been for y'all?
What do you want to share?
Where do we go?
Do we want to talk about attachment? Do you want to share about attachment?
That seems to be it. Attachment. Franco was just on, and he said that essentially from first part of June through on or about middle of August, that's what's up. Just attachments. He went on in depth about it. But is that what's happening with you?
Yes, it's a simple answer to that. I'm laughing because it's such a it's such an in-depth, broad thing. It's happening everywhere. It's happening from a business sense. It's happening from a interpersonal relationship between Kirsty and I. It's happening from our kids. It's literally happening, and I'll just speak for myself. It's literally happening everywhere in my life. And Kirsty.
Well, I think as well, at that higher level, it's offering us all the opportunity to step more into the unknown and be more comfortable with the unknown as well, isn't it? Like, it's showing us what's going on, is showing us how comfortable we actually are with the unknown. Like, we thought, if someone thought they were comfortable in the unknown, and then stuff comes up and you realize, oh, okay, I'm still attached.
And Kirst called me my attachment to our relationship the other day, which means we're calling each other in that one conversation. And I just sat with the fact that for me, I'd become comfortable in a number of areas, and wherever I'd become comfortable, there was fatigue or death. There was dying in that area. And, it then led to a bigger discussion about masculine, feminine, but yeah, I just realized that for me, like, I can smell Kirsty, and I get this beautiful sense of nurture and support. But if I get comfortable in that smell, then I take that smell for granted and realize and forget to realize that smell is transient, and I have it for a moment. And, in the next moment, I may not have it for whatever reason, but if I have an attachment to needing it in the next moment, then that'll cause me to act in a certain way to restrict Kirsty in doing what she needs to do to be the biggest person that she can, to grow to where she possibly can. And yeah, it's really thrown everything in our relationship up in the air right now.
I think what was I going to say?
Are you
When I was
laughing?
just listening to you, and I think what just when you say everything, it's thrown everything up in our relationship. Like James has said before, you know, we've been divorced 50 times or whatever, but it's not like that this time. It's simply, where am I with my masculine wound? Where is James with his feminine?
Yeah.
And where do we need to allow ourselves to go deeper in that and challenge ourselves even more deeply, so that we can open our hearts even more and we've got greater capacity, because it's not about us, it's about the expression of who we show up as in the world. So yeah, that's how we've seen it play. You know, we've seen it as James said, in many different areas in our life, but for us it's shown up, because it always does, at that level in our relationship as well. And just releasing that attachment that we thought wasn't there.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. We thought the attachment wasn't there, and it was.
Yeah.
And so the beautiful thing about calling it all into question is like it's in every aspect. What it's done is it's creating growth and beauty to come through an even richer sense. Like my respect for Kirsty had, like, in the last, I don't know, week, has deepened even more, to see how she can hold space for me at a level that I didn't know was possible from a woman. And, you know, that means that when I look at her, there's a refined, there's a newfound love. It's just a newfound love. And like it's been letting go of the attachment, which has rebirthed something for me. And that's really, really cool.
Y'all might need to get a hotel room.
We've got one tonight.
I can relate to what you're saying on a couple of things. One is, and I think it's what you're describing is, first of all, it's everywhere. Like you were saying, it's every part of your life. So you see it coming. Morgan and I were talking about this a few days ago. Hey, it feels like the same thing as last month. I talked to Franco about it. But it's the same cycle of this, I guess, this 90-day period by his intel of this detaching. And I made the comment to him. I said, you know, the crazy thing is, you're not detaching.
Yeah.
You're not detaching. You're just not attached, because that's what happens. You know, I told Morgan today, you know, I was like, I'm not attached to you. I'm attracted to you. Right. I choose. This is what I want to do. Right. You know what I mean? So I think it's been trying on people, because it affects how we've acted. You know, like we're supposed to do this and we're supposed to do that. And we're supposed to react this way because that's what Mars and Venus do. And I think it's been a little helter skelter for the human aspect, as the whole thing has, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah, that's powerful though. What you said, James, because I feel the same way. I feel exactly the same way, not just about Morgan, but about everything. But obviously, that's a huge part of it. I'm just like, my heart's just like, it's more than cracked open, right?
Yeah.
It goes. And it's funny what you say about the detachment, and then you can refer that to open as well. It's like open, closed. When I'm coming to this place, there's no feeling of opened or closed. There's no feeling of a need for boundary. Like I'm transcending the need for boundary anymore, because it just flows. And the reason I need a boundary is because I'm attached to what's inside the boundary. Yeah. And I have this identity about the inside of the boundary. You can't cross that boundary, because you will violate the attachment that I have, or the way that this needs to happen within the boundary. And in essence, yeah, but that said,
the boundary is so important in the evolution of the
it's a net. It's just going to say exactly right. It's so, when we go through that process of not having any boundaries, we need to realize what boundaries are. That's the whole polarity thing. We need to own, and I spoke in a video about this the other day, but we need to own both poles of anything before we can transcend it. So I need to own the boundarylessness, and I need to own, or not having boundaries, I should say, and I need to own, therefore, the need to have boundaries to be able to transcend to a point of being boundaryless.
Yeah.
It's a place where it's not up. And I've got to say, analogously, Kirsty and I were talking in the kitchen the other day, and I looked at the door, at the front door of my house, and I said to her, "You've just shown me the front door of my house, and I'm both scared shitless and exhilarated to stand." And because there's so much potential out there, but the only way I can tap into that infinite potential is by actually letting go of the attachment, going to this place, which again scares the shit out of me and excites the crap out of me.
It's the power of it, isn't it? You know, it's that freedom of choice, and that's it. I showed you the door, and you were able to make a choice in that moment. You didn't feel restricted. You didn't feel limited. You were completely open, and it's like, well, what do I really want to do in this moment? Knowing that I control 3 things and I have the intention to do no harm.
Yeah. The whole thing with boundaries is an interesting thing, because there's a lot of things that are in our awareness that have a new kind of a dynamic. Okay, so boundaries is a perfect one. Like, we didn't know we had to put up boundaries, and it's been important because people have talked about it. Oh, I got to put up my boundaries, but we're quickly entering a space where there are no boundaries. So I think it's a really good example, because I think there's a lot of information that we all receive individually where we get this transition thing happening. I guess you would call it embodying, where you go, oh, that's a boundary, so I need to set boundaries. You know, I need to, let my voice come out and speak the truth. But at the same time, you're headed to a place where there are no boundaries. And I think we get lost a little bit sometimes. I'm not talking about you right now. I'm really not even talking about boundaries. I'm talking about one of the things that I've dealt with myself, and what I see with people is we get kind of fixated, and I'm sure it's understandable, on what it looks like over there, like in 5D, or whatever it is. And I think there's a lot of embodiment going on right now.
Yeah.
What's a question for you? You and I have talked a bit about archetypes in our conversations together, and I can't remember if I've mentioned, but possibly have, that the Holy Grail was never entrusted to the priests; it was entrusted to the knights. And for me, that makes a lot of sense, because the knights operate on a code of honor, which goes back to what we talk about. Why do you think that, if the Holy Grail in essence archetypally is the philosopher's stone, the pure essence of ourselves, the ultimate goal within us, why do you reckon it was given to the knight?
I don't know. I mean, I see the Holy Grail. I mean, I've seen a couple of different things, but I just get from my own experience the way it was shown to me when I woke up, because they did show it, but I didn't know what it was. I saw it as like, I don't know, whatever's inside of us, the soul. I don't really know. And as far as the archetype thing, I don't know. That's a really good question. I have no idea.
What would you say?
Well, the way I lean to in where I've come to in my place, and having, again, last chat we had a big chat about, what it's like to be in the military.
Yeah.
The military's not the knights. They're not warriors. Like, it's got a massive distinction between archetypally that energy is there, and it's supposedly meant to be embodied in it, but it's currently, there's many reasons as to why it's not. But in its truest sense, for me, the knight represents that one who operates by a disciplined code of honor, where they're completely of service to something higher than themselves. They know the sanctity of that which they protect. It's in essence, it's life which they protect, and they will do so very, very decisively. And you don't cross the night. Like it's something which is, you do not cross it. And I've felt that energy in the bush before, where I went, I wonder what's down there. And I felt that energy go, you don't cross that line. And I went, oh, I'm not crossing that line. So, where I've come to in that is go back to this point of boundarylessness. If I'm to operate in that space, I must operate with respect, reverence, and responsibility, and 3 elements of the code of the night. I must do that in honor. I must enter that sacred place, knowing that it's not actually about me, letting go of the need for self-importance, which is one of the reasons why the military doesn't embody it anymore, is because the military's become very egoic, and that's a cultural thing. So yeah, that's basically where I've come to.
I think as well, for me, adding to that, the night is a stronger expression of the masculine, which provides those boundaries. Like if I think about when our youngest daughter came into womanhood, we had a menage ceremony, and we created this beautiful womb, and it was all symbolic. And James actually sat at the entrance to the womb, representing the masculine, holding the womb space. And
I didn't enter.
No, you didn't enter. And I think that's probably, for me, from that symbolic perspective, that's what I would say is the knight is a stronger expression of that than the priest is. And that's...
Well, the priest role's different though, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it goes to holding space. Like this massive conversation with a couple of men lately about the protector, and they've got to protect and therefore provide for their family. And that's a very heroic, juvenile, I use juvenile as opposed to immature, but I'm doing so with a dance of words to attempt to get away from social labeling of them. But if I'm to say that I've got to provide to Kirsty and the family, then I'm attaching myself to one role, and then I actually constrain and I chain myself in my life to this, and I'm in service. I'm not of service, and I get, my wings get clipped, as opposed to being holding space for her. You can even when I say it, I feel, instead of leaning in and over in holding space, I'm leaning back and out so that she can expand. But at the same time, no motherfucker's coming near her where she does this. Like, it's sacred territory, man. If you try it, you're off. Yeah. And but it's done with a real purity and balance, as opposed to I'm right in your space and I'm all over the top of you and everything like that.
And at the same time, we're getting into the nuances of that with what we've been talking about, in that, when I was talking the other day and we were having that, we were having the boundary conversation, that idea of the protector and the provider, it totally, it doesn't recognize that the woman in the relationship has her own ability to provide and protect as well. So it's totally disrespecting her masculine. And, like when I say, don't fuck with me, that it's not okay.
That's some scary stuff there, my brother.
No, I'm with you on this 100%. We're going to have a great conversation. And I totally get it. Yeah.
So it's like these are the nuances that we're all exploring because we are letting down those walls even more.
Yeah.
They're just crumbling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
I
true.
need, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I need boundaries initially when I'm exploring this.
Yeah.
It's like a training matrix because I need to know when I have violated the sanctity of it, because I don't understand myself. It's like a child. Like, how are you feeling right now? Happy? Or are you really happy, or is there a bit of anger there? Oh, okay. You've got to educate them on how they're feeling because what we're actually doing is we're labeling something in which is unlabeled to them prior to that. So then goes through the labeling process where they live their life, and then over time they let go of the label if they can. Well, there's the same process here. I need the boundary so that I realize, oops, that's an imbalanced use of my energy, and so I get an understanding of that now. And then when I understand and I master myself, then I don't need the boundary. But until I come to self-mastery, I can't do that.
And it brings us greater presence with each other, doesn't it? Because we're constantly embodying something you said before, Todd, about, like I'm constantly looking out there. Oh yeah, that was right. I'm looking at the 5D instead of letting myself be in the 3D. And, that is what we're doing. We're embodying. There's times when we are in the 3D, and when we're in the 3D, let ourselves be in it and be here completely. Because when we allow ourselves to be there completely or be here completely, we impact so many others as well, because we're bringing all of that light into this moment as well.
Yeah. This is the real stuff. It's the real stuff. I mean, because everybody's leaving behind the old them.
Yeah.
So then you have a relationship. We've gone through it, and the frequency is the same. I mean, it's the same as yours. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Like, I can't really explain it, but I totally get what you're saying. Like between the words, because there's definitely a change in the both of you from the time I've known you. I mean, I'm talking about since the last time. I mean, I talked to both of you individually in the last 3 weeks on the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever that is, I mean, that it's a sacredness that's coming through. Yeah.
Thanks for seeing.
Thank you. Talking to Franco in the previous show, and of course he's talking, IT language in terms of what we're doing. But one of the things he was saying is that there's, like there's a range within each, let's say 3D, right? And then there's a range in the next one. And that what's happening is there's a lot of people going from the one phase to the next phase, or the one dimension to the next dimension. And one of the leading characteristics of that is of service. He was talking about how it's been kind of a new, like an adjustment to just do the things that we normally do.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about how we're getting to this point, I can totally relate, where you actually can start to do your stuff again while you're doing all that stuff. It used to be we do that stuff and we got to stop everything, right? But the thing that the reason I brought that up is because of what you said about the nights. Because there is a difference between of service and in service. And there's a big difference when somebody wants to do something for the right reasons, right? So I don't know, that night kind of persona, that's I get what where you came up with the question. I get that now. Yeah.
I mean, in Australia, we've witnessed it, like with our military and in the media by politicians. I completely understand that the military is an arm of national, I know the whole strategic theory behind it, but at the same time, if we understand that when you throw the baby out of the bathwater for the sole desire of progression, you come to a place where you lose the essence of what something exists for. And once you come into that place, you come into a very dangerous place of being vulnerable to manipulation.
Yeah.
And you have, from that essence, you have some very, very serious power, which has been gifted to you because of the originality of your coming into existence. And if you lose connection to that, then what actually happens can be very devastating. In my humble opinion, this is my opinion now. In my opinion, we've come to a place because people have not got the intestinal fortitude, the moral efficacy to stand up and say no. And this is not what this institution has been created for or gifted its power to. And that's violation of the creed. What that breeds within the human consciousness is shame and guilt. And then go back to the warrior ethos, the samurai, they have a purpose for that. If that ever happens to a samurai, they must take their own life in sabotage, which is honorable suicide.
Yeah.
And they do it by their own blood. But I think that's analogous. I'm just talking about a microcosm of society. I think that's analogous right across society at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking at so many levels in this conversation, aren't we? Really, because it goes back to that the need for the boundary, and I think somebody said before that we all give away our power so often, and we do. Like, we give away our masculine, and people are saying men need to rise and men need to stand. No, we don't. Like, we all just need to stand in our masculine power and say no, or say yes if we need to say yes, or to say whatever feels right for us. But we've lost that connection to that, as you were saying. We've lost the connection to the not, obviously not us, like we're finding it at new levels, but as a society, we've lost the connection to the code.
Well, and that, for me, that's a call. That's a call to action now, which is to be the beacon of hope, or not so much hope, but be the beacon of light for those to realize that you can live the code still. And we might be talking high level at the moment. What does this mean? It means that I know, and I've worked with people that make handshake deals for $750,000 business deal. And it's done by a handshake because they look the other person in the eye, and it is an honorable agreement. We were meant to run a workshop last week for a financial institution. And when the agreement was bouncing between the two of us, just working out exactly what they needed and how we could facilitate that, they handed it over to their legal team, and their legal team came back and suggested a series of legal stipulations to the agreement. And I sat with them and I said, if I'm to sign this, to put my signature to this, I will breach my honor code, because it gives me no flexibility to truly be of service to them. And I just had Kirsty and I went and had coffee with this lady on Tuesday, and she said, if we had signed that original agreement, I'd be owing $10,000 for doing nothing. And it's, we look at it and say,
would have been good for us.
Give us $10,000 for being doing nothing. That's cool. But that's what it's what the stipulation would have meant. And I said, can you now understand why it's communication and transparency between parties is so much more important than legal speak? You go to archetypal of this. The lawyer with their legalese is actually the shadow side of the magician, because they create a language which is indecipherable to people, and so they therefore hold power. It's just archetypally how that works. But that doesn't mean to say that all lawyers are evil and everything else. That's not what I'm saying. We educated. We went into dialogue with this lawyer, and they got educated in the process. So they now know how to actually be of assistance to their organisation even deeper if they choose. There's a choice point there of knowledge.
Yeah, I think we had an attorney from Melbourne, uh, Geraldine Grace, and she was on a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about how these attorneys are getting together, awake attorneys, and consciously going in together to change the system.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because of what you said, because I think I know for me, I've not given it a lot of thought, but I think there's a lot of, I think we're represented across the board is what I'm getting at. I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot more penetration than we ever thought.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I know. Years, like I've said to girlfriends of mine that are still in the army, you're there for a reason. Like you've got this light, and you've got this level of knowledge and compassion and understanding. And so it's important that you allow yourself to be there. You continue to allow yourself to be there for as long as you want to be there. Like, because they're, as they're in that process, they're like, oh God, I think I'm doing the wrong thing. But no, that's just a perception of, like, lawyers, for example. Like, everyone wants to bag lawyers and say they're evil. That's just a perception.
We
You
know
don't
some
have
beautiful
to.
lawyers.
You don't have to choose that. We're watching the Harry Potter series
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And, the first thing that happens when Harry goes to Hogwarts is the Sorting Hat goes on him, and he could go either way. He could go to Gryffindor, or he could go to Slytherin. But he chooses to go to Gryffindor because that's what his heart says.
And that's what the hat says to him.
Yeah.
In the next one, in the next movie, he says, "You ended in Gryffindor because you chose. You said to me, I want to be in Gryffindor." So the hat's even telling him that his conscious awareness and his conscious choice is extremely powerful and pertinent in this moment. And we just watched number 5, where Voldemort goes into Harry, and Dumbledore's standing, the magician of all magicians. The one that is wise beyond anyone else's understanding and realm, and sees everything, and he sees what's happening in Harry, and he's just talking to Harry, and he says, "It's what you give the power to."
Yeah.
It's like the old American
It's
Indian.
not about how you're the same; it's how you're different.
It's how you're different. Yeah. It's that old American Indian passage where they say, "What wolf do you feed?"
Yeah.
It's in everything. It's the same. What wolf are we feeding at the moment out on the street, Mullumbimby? Are you getting upset that someone is wearing someone is wearing a mask, or are you getting upset that someone's not wearing a mask, or you're just getting upset because something, that's, you're attached to people attached to the drama. Oh,
yeah.
I know that.
Well, it's been the way of life. And so, like, on that note, everybody's beginning to speak more about how this is an adjustment to a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think at the core of it is that whatever you were talking about earlier, where this is our challenge, where we just need to have the honor to make the choice from the human, the collective human, and stay with what we know is right, or aligned, or whatever you want to call it. That's coming. And, so how everything's different. So, like, even like you guys now, like, it's so obvious. Like, it's profound. So, I mean, to get there, and you don't know what to do to get there, and the only thing you have to work with is what we've all done before, be it a relationship, business, whatever. Was it any different for you guys to get to this point where you're at today? Because, I mean, I can see it. Was it just basically refining the process that you've created over the years?
For me, I'll speak for me. For me, the latter, and getting really, like, everything I've talked about. One of the things that I'll say very regularly is, I am the person who listens to what I say more than anyone else I ever speak to, because I'm the only person in 100% of my conversations. And I've got to ask myself that question too. Am I in 100% of my conversations? That's an even bigger one to ask about presence and everything like that. And so that was a massive call to action in itself. And so in listening to what I've been called to learn, to assist others learn as well, it's becoming brilliant at the basics. And the more the more life has attempted to become complex to me, the more I default straight back to being, refining my mastery of my basic tenets. The more life's open up to me in ways that I never knew possible.
I think for me, it's been a deeper commitment to self, because in allowing myself to continue to commit to a relationship, I need to be able to commit to myself, and so it's been a deeper knowing of my boundary, but going, okay, this was my boundary, but I'm actually stepping over my own boundary this time, and I'm not giving away my masculine, because that's what I've done in the past. I've done that to make James happy, or to make the kids happy, or to make someone else happy. And it's been like, what I saw leading up to this process with us was me getting stronger in boundaries with other people that were in my life, and playing that out and going, actually, no, this is not the energy that I want in my life anymore. And so then obviously it comes in closer and closer, and then I'm able to see where I'm still playing that out between us. And so it's going even deeper into self and going, do you want to stay attached to this because it's not serving you? And so it's like yes or no. And where it comes down to last week when we had the conversation of, I'm showing you the door and now you get to choose. And then he gets it brings it totally up into the open, and then we get to choose and then come together again.
And then you after you integrate, you go get a hotel room.
Well, we've got two, one for the girls and then one for us.
Well, of course.
Yeah, it was my birthday today, so
happy birthday!
Thank
you.
Happy
birthday!
So we've decided in my 47th year to go and
actually 48.
It's now my 48th year. That's right. But
you're 48. He didn't even know how old, huh?
Because I'm attached to age. No, we just got to go away for the weekend and be in a beautiful spot. But what I thought when Kirsty was answering that question and going back to the essence of your beautiful question was to a listener that, your listeners are a very high level anyway, especially by watching the chat. But, in answering that question, possibly two things might explain a little bit better how I got to where we got to. The first one was to acknowledge and own my level of placing self-importance on myself, like making it all about me, having a highly inflated level or having a level of self-importance. Therefore, when I realized that and I started to look and go, holy cow, I just made this conversation about me, or wow, that was an autobiographical response, or why am I acting in this way when realistically it's got nothing to do with me? Why am I even choosing to think about what my opinion is in this situation to possibly formulate out a response based on opinion when realistically it's got nothing to do with
that's right. Shut the fuck up. Right? Exactly. That's a shut the fuck up mode.
Exactly right.
I think men are going to get quieter in general. Yeah. I think it's already started. So that's okay. That was so because you guys have been on, I don't even know, probably 10, 12 times, and you're always very open. We've done the same thing. You go on and you're not exactly aligned at the moment, but I've noticed that you've actually, it's been very obvious this year. Like you can see the connection has gotten stronger, and your illumination obviously has gotten more powerful. Because James, you're always respectful, and you're always hold her, but now it just seems like you're looking at her differently.
When you said that, the thing that came to mind was James has obviously been more attached to the physical in our relationship than I have, and one of the things that that sounded bad. Anyway,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's just the reality. It's a fact. I mean, the men were in the lower chakras, the women were in the higher chakras. That's all there is to it.
But as we go through, as we go through each iteration, there'll be times where he'll be like, I feel really disconnected from you, because he doesn't feel that physicality. Whereas I don't necessarily have that aspect. And I think that the self-importance comes into that as well. Like when we're in that physical connection, that we are making things personal. So I suppose I just wanted to share that because you said something. I just got distracted by Morgan's comment. I'd like a hotel room tonight.
Yeah, she's going there. She's I'm sorry. Keep going.
I've lost my place.
I just
I haven't at all.
She's the bomb. God.
But yeah, I wanted to say that because you asked, how do we get there?
Yeah.
And it is a constant commitment to self and commitment to self, and then letting go of attachment. And that self-importance journey, like that's been massive for us, like lately in the process as well.
And that journey made me understand the attachments even more.
Yeah.
Like just coming from that lens of, yeah, dude, that's a high level of self-importance you've just thrown on yourself in this situation right there. Oh, and I see why. That's the attachment right there.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the attachment is well, obviously it's all egoic, but it's like this is, go back 2, 3, 4, 5 months. I don't even know, but I can remember having the conversations in my head as you start to formulate the question. I'm not talking about the show because that's part of the show. I'm talking about running into somebody or whatever. And the questions or the comment or the framing or the controlling or whatever you want to call it, whatever you're talking about, starts to formulate in the head. And then I'm going, wait a minute. Why are you even saying anything? Like, who the hell are you? Right. And I think that's, some have written in the past few months about the particular bump in the road in general that the men are coming into. I think that's one of the aspects of it. The Mr. Fix-It's got to go. I don't know. It's going to be probably stated more often than it used to be. I mean, it's interesting, but there does seem to be, and you guys kind of exemplify it. There's something different, and it's in both. Like you can see her softly rising. It's like a soft power, right? And you can see the masculine softening too, but it's like you said, you go from, standing guard outside the circle to just, holding space outside the circle. Right?
Yeah.
You guys have it written all over your face. What I just tried to say. I
saw it's from Morgan, that our partners are as our mirrors are dropping away. And I completely resonate with that, and that, those of us that have been on this journey for a long time, we're now standing completely in the center and we're looking out. There's no need to receive that projection from outside of us. We know the power of what I'm actually projecting outwards, and I expect and need nothing from out there for me to know. And that's the depth, the next depth of us, I feel, in our relationship.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
We go towards the physicality, and this is where, I know some of my depth work I'm doing on myself now is to let go of the need for physicality and actually realize I don't actually need. Morgan wrote, I love how Morgan's actually in this conversation, by the way. Hi, Morgan.
I think she was actually writing me a note, and she actually got mixed up and put it onto the comments.
What, about going to a hotel room?
Like I could, I'd have to get my magic carpet out of the closet, but because she put "oops, sorry" after that.
the point Morgan wrote about one day was about how this belief of the need for the male to go hammer and tong in the sexual interaction to get the stimulation for both people to have an orgasm, etc.
Right.
And Morgan's subtle but very blunt point was, you're talking about an organ which has the muscles to get the baby into the world, and you're thinking that that's needed. And like I sat with that for so long, going, that is such a boom comment.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I often sit with a bit of information for a long time to wait until it finds its place. It's still to a place which I can understand it first and then start to integrate and embody it. But that's, for me, it's starting to go beyond the physicality of the relationship. Yet in that process, I was explaining this to a mate the other day. One of the reasons why I didn't want to go there was because of my fear of letting go of sex, because it's been such an important part of my life for so long. But that attachment to sex itself actually limits the whole experience, as we know, or as many people know. And so it's just really, really funny, those little immature aspects that hold the anchors that hold with those attachments, that they're actually, to liberate from the anchor and to liberate the attachment, actually gifts more in its entirety. So yeah.
Wow, that's an important subject, and I just saw this thing pop up on my phone. Queensland imposes strictest lockdown yet as outbreak grows. Sorry, I probably shouldn't even mention that. But yeah, I think that too. I mean, that's been a big one for me. You know, we talked about it a lot, and I've actually, in terms of sexuality or sacred sexuality or intimacy, I probably personally had more. Something happened after we physically separated. I guess there was more insight, more clarity. But going back to the attachment, detachment thing, I get it. I really get it now. And the sexual intimacy or sacred sexuality is just another version of everything else. Because, like you said earlier, it's affecting all aspects of our experience. But my point is, I get it. And not just in sacred sexuality, because to me, everything is sacred sexuality.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's, you don't, and of course, I'm like you, James. I mean, it was a big part of the identity and all that. So how do you, when I heard, oh, what you're going to get as a result of letting go of this is far greater than this has ever been. And this was pretty good, right? But you don't see how it can happen. But now I can see it. I see how it works, and it's the same energy everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's another reason, probably the biggest reason in my mind, that underlying everything is where the men. I'm going to get a big pit in my stomach right now. Where the men are going to we've approached now our biggest obstacle, which is the sexual distortion. Because I've had these conversations with friends of mine over the last couple of years, as we would dig into it and we'd have a conversation. Like Morgan and I would dig into it. We'd do a show, and then this guy would call me, that guy would call me, and I recognized right away myself. Because when they started to ask me about it, and I started to explain this type of stuff to them, immediately the answers I would get would be, "Well, yeah, we can be celibate for like 3 weeks, and then we'll go back." Or in other words, it was that Mr. Fix It, frame it up. Okay, so it's going to be this way. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'm a team player. So the whole program itself has to go, and if you think about it, that's a pretty gigantic, enormous load for a typical man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
Because
you're
of the, yeah. Yeah.
But you just articulated some awesome stuff there.
Yeah.
And when you were speaking, the old adage of the master martial artist who says the only reason why I learnt to fight was so I didn't have to. Now, it's actually a paradox of the statement, and you can't understand it until you sit in his place. And what he's basically talking about, from my humble opinion, again goes to those poles. So to learn to fight means I know how to use the energy, and I can get into that and allow myself to be consumed by the fight. But at the same time, I have to own the coward that runs away, and the coward that doesn't want to fight because they don't believe they have the capability to fight. And it's the dance of the same thing. But when I completely own both poles, I step to a new realization where you see there is no fight.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a fight. And this is where you're coming to when you say, now I can see your discussion, but there's no reason for me to enter the discussion.
No.
I did this on a radio interview on mainstream radio. It's actually funny enough in Brisbane. It's Brisbane Drive program on the ABC. And this guy was interviewing me about about trust and politicians. And they'd just done, it was before the last election, and they'd just done this poll on Australian politicians, and none of the politicians registered above 5 for either trustworthiness or competence in any of the politicians that they put up in this poll. And it's a poll out of 10 being really competent, really trustworthy. And we got into this discussion, and I actually shifted the discussion because it was starting to bore me. And we went into narrative, and I was explaining, politicians at the moment, they're just running around in a vicious cycle of us versus them and creating drama. There's no unifying narrative in this country anymore. And so then, he realized really quickly, he says, well, the media are a key aspect of that as well. And I didn't answer him. There was no need to answer him. So on free-to-air radio, there's this big pause. And he started the conversation again. And I said, you've got it, mate. I don't need to add anything to that. Yeah. There is a huge obligation for the media based on what I struggle with that word obligation, but I'll use it in this term. There's a huge obligation to use your power ethically in realizing the narratives you actually, and he was agreeing with it. It was a very interesting thing. But the point to come back to your place is self-confidence self-confidence breeds silence. And then from that, it's my willingness to actually, if I'm really confident in who I am, I can question every single belief system I have.
That's right.
And I don't have to have an opinion and present that and defend that opinion and say, my opinion is damn well right, champ. And who are you to question me, etc. So I don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
That saying often used humorously in our house. Self-confidence is silence. With 2 teenage daughters, it's very funny.
So in other words, they're not too confident.
Actually, it's flipped back on us.
Right? Yeah. Hey, you just entered the twilight zone, man. The teenage zone. I mean, you're in deep shit.
Okay then.
Kirsty, have you picked up on the women? I mean, I'm just talking like the last 6 weeks, even.
Yeah.
Or maybe go ahead.
Yeah. Exactly what James was talking about. It's that owning of the poles. And that's the biggest thing I've been working with is, just owning the poles to be able to see. Everyone wants to be up here, but they want to still fight. They want to still fight the thing that they think they're not. And that's what's actually stopping them is recognizing that I am all of it. And that's, that's the dance of the masculine and the feminine, but it's the poles of I am not. And once we transcend that, that's where the gold lies. And so again, in all of us, I think it's just that dark magician that's really there right now, calling us to see her or to see him, and to go, I see that you exist. I see that you're there. I don't have to give you my power anymore, which means I don't have to fight you. And then I come into this place of peace. I was sharing with some of my friends the other day. I was in a yoga class the other morning, and I often get so many just little remembrances in yoga. And I was in a shoulder stand, and it was a shoulder stand that was just, I didn't have my hands, so it was harder to balance. And I was looking at my feet. So I was watching my feet, and I was quite unsteady. And then as soon as I brought my attention back to my center, my chest, I was able to steady myself. And I thought, wow, that's such a great metaphor. Like, if I'm concentrating on the extremities and trying to get them to be still, it's just not going to happen. But as soon as I bring myself back to my center, and I stay there, and I live from that place, everything starts to shift around me, and I feel myself more solidly at that center. And that's where I feel, that's where I've seen so much over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive too, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is counterintuitive. And that's what I realized when I was there looking at my feet. Like, I was looking at my feet, and it was like, okay, come on, I need to stop my feet. And what am I doing? And then it was like, no, actually just come back to the center, and they naturally stop moving. Amazing.
God, you guys are a breath of fresh air. It's good to see. Very good to see. It's good seeing you.
You too.
Yeah, you too, brother. Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
it's always good seeing you. I'll see you in person. I'll see you in person before too long.
Magic carpet. Magic carpet.
Yeah. No. I think, and I'm not a prognosticator, but utilizing some of the intel that some of the people on the show come on, I think we're in for a pretty good ride these next 17 months. Not in a bad way. I just think everything's coming up now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think we've got the knowledge, we've got the awareness, and we've also got each other. Like, more of us have been attracted to each other, and we're stronger for that. So
people are starting to wake up what's important to them, and now comes the courage to let go of the need, but also move through the fear, and realize you can actually have your cake and eat it too, even when other people say you can't. When that happens, if one of two things are going to happen: either you're not listening truly to yourself, and therefore it's not actually what your higher self's desire is, or the second point is that you're not allowing yourself to see how you can actually have it. Both actually forms of attachment, one external, one internal. So that old attachment again. So yeah, it's a. I was actually. Someone asked me today, some guy just on Facebook, I don't know him, he just said, what's my opinion? What's my opinion of the military, the use of the military currently? Because they're rolling out the military now for...
I saw that in Sydney.
Yeah, which is, quite interesting. And I think it's a beautiful place because it's offering us all so much. And like for me at the moment, it's just those that can see poles and actually own the poles.
Yeah.
These are the people which are going to lead us into the next iteration of life.
Yeah. 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 It's like, it's like in a relationship. There's so many valuable things. And of course, there's the typical things that we think are part of it, which those are being right. And, but it's the opportunity for some really close self-introspection based on a mirror that's very close to you. So you can use that same approach to what you're talking about. Some of the issues you're talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I noticed that there was a lot of women at the two that I viewed last weekend, Melbourne and Sydney.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of women, and I hadn't seen that before. I really hadn't seen that, and I'm talking Occupy Wall Street and other. But the other thing that I thought was good too is in where was it in? I don't know if it was France. I don't know what European country it was, but so it was France. Yeah, the protesters, like they did in Australia, they got hit with a mandate. The people went straight out with no mask and started marching, and some of the police force took off their equipment and dropped their weapons and marched with them. And the reason I thought that was really significant is because, and I don't know, James could probably speak to this. I've had friends in law enforcement in the military, and there's not a stereotypical personality, but there is a general, that type of person will have a general affinity for that type of environment. So there's something there. Like you'd say the same for a football team. But so I figure, well, that law enforcement over there is no different than this law enforcement here or the law enforcement in Australia. So that, to me, I thought that was a big thing to happen.
Yeah. I saw the same thing and I felt the same as you did. I was like, people, because that's for us, I think the reason that both of us saw the military as something that resonated with us is because we both believe in truth. We're both truth warriors, and so that's why we were attracted to the military. And there's only so long that people can fool themselves. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm taken back to when I was in Iraq and faced with the predicament of doing a joint mission with some Americans, and I was told that I was not allowed to, if they crossed a line on a map called the border. Funny we talk about that right now. If they crossed that border and they got into contact, they could be literally 20 minutes reaction time from me, and I had more combat power than them by 10. I was not allowed to assist because it was outside my authorized area. And I just looked my commanding officer in the eye and I said, "We got to speak." And he said, "Cheese is my nickname." He goes, "Cheese, we're not having this conversation." I said, "Sir, we're fucking having this conversation." He says, "Cheese," and he looked me straight in the eye. He says, "We're not having this conversation. I know exactly what you'll do." And I knew just from those words that, cool, if I have to stand a court martial, he'll stand beside me. And I knew there were two men in that room who knew truth. Yeah. And we weren't going to allow some false idol to lay down law on us when there's a higher truth in
that's such a good example too, because of the ludicrousness and because on a micro level how the whole thing works. It was simply put in front of you to persuade a certain standard line, and your friend knew the truth. He knew that you knew it too.
I actually hold that in my heart for the military because
military, police, emergency service,
police and all of those
politicians, lawyers, doctors.
I do hold that in my heart, and I believe that when offered the difference between right and wrong, they will choose right.
I agree with you 100,000%.
Yeah.
And I believe that most of the people, I mean, that's that there is a of service intention.
Yeah,
of course, it's but then you see a lot of but I guess in every arena there's a wake up being affected. So yeah.
Or Aristotle said, "Words are nothing without being backed by action," and without being put in that position, without being put in this position we're facing right now, we can speak this all we want, but will we actually follow through? And it's that action and embodiment. The action causes the embodiment. So we need to be placed in this position right now. We need to go through the long dark night of the souls, the initiation, and that initiation allows us all to actually master through. You can only master through embodiment. And so it's this massive call to action for us now to go back to be brilliant at the basics and allow ourselves self-mastery to be able to operate with respect, responsibility, and reverence to everything that's out there in this embodied way, and know the difference between small t truth and big T truth, universal truth.
Truth is truth. You know what I mean? It's like, but you know, if you think about it, what you're describing that's going to happen, it's the same set of, you know, it's the same type of equation as you two today. Like, it's just at some point, some part of it said enough, you know, and then the conversation starts. I have a feeling that they're going to be more of a they, or what we consider to be, you know, these institutions are going to be kind of like a house of cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
And do you want to know the funny thing from my standpoint? It's not going to be anti-vaxxers who bring down the vaccines. It's not going to be any pole which brings down the other pole. It's going to be those that transcend, are willing to get out of their pole, their fanaticism, their attachment, and see the next level, which actually brings the whole thing down.
Yeah, that's right. I had brought this up to somebody I was talking to in the last week, and I said, I wonder, with all this awareness we have, do we sit here and work the ethers, and send our good juju? And I mean that in the highest respect. Or do we go out there and run the risk of taking on a charge? But I would think it was a man, and he said, well, there's a kind of a third choice, and that third choice is that you go out there with the intention of what you carry inside, if you stayed in the other situation. And I think that's accurate.
Absolutely.
Because that's energy, and that, to me, that's the type of energy that is palpable. And you see a bunch of police officers drop their weapons and their shields and join the crowd.
Yeah. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Peace.
All right.
The next level, it's peace.
That's right.
It's that center. It's like that. Oh, I just have to bring my attention here, and then that is what projects out of me.
Yeah.
Now we've got to go and check into a hotel room.
Yeah. TMI. No, I'm kidding. Y'all have fun.
From you.
Yeah, I know. I love you guys. We'll see y'all.
Too,
Take care.